You're watching Smart 24 TV, and this is Smart Means Business, and we are here to drive business together with you. Don't forget our handles at Smart 24 TV, differently, where your choice really relies on social media. And we're going now to be speaking about landing site activities and how greatly they impact the economy around the country. But also, before even we speak about how they're impacting the economic ways, there is also a health issue. Ministry of Health highlighted actually that most of the landing sites or the fishery activities are the most that are meant, that have been a drive of high reluctancy on about HIV spread. Do you know about that?
It is everywhere.
Ababalia.
Along even on most of the islands. Reports coming in. If you look at Greater Masaka, according to the AIDS Commission in Uganda, that is where there is a lot of AIDS spread in Greater Masaka. Now, besides that, when you look at the islands and the fishermen around landing sites, and this was attributed to the fact that most of them don't use protectives when they are going into any sexual intercourse. So this is why there is a very high rate of spread of HIV
around sites, fishing sites or water sites, water bodies where there is. Why do you think? Okay, I want you can share please your reason on why do you think there is a lot of is it because the water could be attracting a lot of people? I want to know the science.
The Ugandans say, omuvubi yali akivubye. There is that saying. Nti omuvubi waba afunye kusente ali akivubi. Because they will get a lot of money. The fishermen tend to get a lot of money from the fish and all that. And after that,
spending
the enjoyment part of it comes in. And then once they are spending, they tend to also engage around getting themselves women, others buy the prostitutes, others, all that. That is the way some of them tend to celebrate
so
a big
could that
cut.
also mean that there is a lot of prostitution around shores, different shores of water bodies?
There is around almost all trading centers. It's just that there is a lot of money around the landing sites.
Okay.
So because remember, most of these people tend to live their life at the shores. So there is no way they're going to put money somewhere else.
You mean majority have not got families away from there?
Most of their families are around the areas, either on the islands or around the landing sites. That is, if at all you get a chance of finding the women there, the discussions they'll give you is that their families are either settled around the areas, not far away from the landing sites.
Okay, but again, my advice is, life is not yet, or is not meant to only stop at the shore, to only stop at the landing site, to only stop at the island you're using or living at right now. Life continues. There is another life. You can live even across the globe, across borders, not only being comfortable to where you are. So why end your life at that very age, or why get excited only for looking at maybe water bodies? There are a lot of other excitement areas that you could actually have fun. But let us now try to be safe, and also this will help us save for the future, because when your health is stable, definitely you're going to wake up every day, make that money. But speaking of that, at GGABA landing site, Ugandans decry of the lack of preserved fish. Now Ugandans dealing in fish at GGABA landing site have as well decried for the lack of fridges to keep their fish, to keep it fresh. Also, the reporter Pedson Mumbere took a quick look at the entire socio-economic development activity aspect around GGABA landing site. Let us look at why the decree of lack of fridges to preserve fish away from
making, photography, trade, and transportation, among others. The mode of fishing has been modernized from small canoes to bigger ones and also engine boats. Some boats are used as means of transport to the island and back to the lakeshore. Landing sites such as GGABA have always been regarded as areas of small-scale fishing activity, but gains made by the fish industry in Uganda over the past few years have not caused more resources to the improving the fishing handling facilities. The locals have also devised means of preserving the fish, such as the use of ice containers. However, they are saying that these machines are expensive and this has had a negative impact on their business.
Okusoomozebwa okusingira ddala ekyennyanja nga kino okiraba nkiguze kiramu naye singa obulwa ayisa akitereka ogenda kwesanga nga kifudde eno emmale ng'eno oba ng'ogiguze emitwalo ng'ebiri oba gumu kitundu ogenda okwekanga ng'enkya singa oba tewagiterese bulungi ogenda okwesanga nga bakuwamu nga mutwalo oba gumu bbiri kitegeeza eba ekusala naye okitereka bulungi n'okikuumira mu kifo ekirungi era okifunamu osobola okiteresa enkya nga kikyali kiramu bulungi.
Ensonga ya firiigi nze sikirinamu nnyo buzibu kuba kati essaawa yakakati mbitunda butunzi wano nze ntunda butunzi n'enkola ki nendekera abasuubuzi ne bagenda mbale bandeetera ebyennyanja n'embitunda kuba ndi auctioneer bandeetera ebyennyanja n'embitunda n'enguza abasuubuzi ne bagenda kati ababa bifisizaawo balayika bo nga bo balakya bakalabizibwa okukola ki okuteeka mu firiigi n'ekikkakatako okwegulira ice okubissaamu ndowooza oba bo bakaluubirizibwa abo kyesimanyi. Firiigi si ssente nnyingi nnyo kuba bw'oba oyagala emmaali ebeere ya mutindo tosobola kukaluubirizibwa nusu kale ekitono nnyo ice wa 2,000 ne firiigi eyo nannyini bwakugamba ojja kuleetayo 1,000 oyagala emmaali ekeere ng'eri bulungi oba okaluubiriziddwamu.
And according to the people that we have talked to here at GGABA landing site, these are the fridges that they have been talking about. If you see here, if my camera person can just stretch and show up all these fridges, these are the fridges where they keep fish to keep them fresh. And most of the people who are dealing in fish are saying they cannot access all these machines just because they are too expensive, and it has costed their business so much. And if you see the other side, if my camera person can show the other side, that's where they put fish. Every time they bring fish from the landing sites, they bring them here and put it here for preservative, for washing, and you cannot access that place when you're putting on uniform. You're supposed to put on a uniform that you're supposed to be white in uniform, and all your gumboots must be clean to enter here. So GGABA landing sites is one of the cleanest sites that we have around Kampala. Like I said, for its best location, very many people from the Kampala city, they have always come here to come and buy fish at a lower price, at a higher price, depending on which type of fish that you want to buy. Economically, people from here are doing well. They are selling their fish. They are getting prices. That's according to the information that we have got from the people who are dealing in fish.
Locals are earning a living through selling fresh fish, deep-fried fish, which attracts people from all over Kampala city due to its taste, which sets it apart from others. All may not be perfect. I saw that fish is sold on makeshift tables, uncovered and protected from the flies that are attracted by the stench. It is something to work on. I undertook a site-specific study of GGABA landing site. I realized that fishing and the entire development of the site has grown over the years, from using small canoes to using motorized boats.
Tukiraba oba batubuulira abaasookawo okusookera ddala omwalo gwabeerawo naye nga mu biseera ebyo ebya 1965 ng'omwalo teguli weeguti nga mutono nnyo, nga waliwo obwato buno bwe bayita bukanuuzi butono nnyo. Kakati ebiseera ebyo okuva wano we tuli okudda eri gye bayita mu Keke Beach waliwo kilomita ndowooza nga 2 omwalo gye gwali.
Nze najja kuno bbanga ddene keriiseeko lye sijja kugamba. Twatandikira eri waliwo eri gye batemera ebyennyanja kuba nze buli bwogenda okula omulimu gugenda gukola ki gukyuka. Ntera okukolerako eri mu bakalakata ebyennyanja naye ebyennyanja bino byonna baali babiyimbira sayidi zaawali eri amazzi we gaawamba mu katale sayidi yaawali ti amazzi bwe gaawamba kati ebyo byonna ebyamazzi nga tebinnajja.
Asked as to whether the level of catching immature fish has gone down basing on their personal perspective, this is what they told me.
Nze ndi musuubuzi wano w'ebyennyanja naye nze mazewo emyaka nga 6 wano nga nsuubulawo naye nze amagye gajja wano ku nnyanja okwo butigomya bavuba ebyennyanja mbo gafune so sikugamba mugajja kukuuma ennyanja kuba obwo obwennyanja neebuuza babuvubirawa nga tegali ku nnyanja ate nga bujja nebutundibwa nga buvubirawa.
Efforts to getting to the Fisheries Directorate and Uganda People's Defence Forces Fisheries Protection Unit was futile. Away from that, I as well realized that women have got employment through buying fish from fishermen and take it to the markets or sell to other fishmongers. Through working, they can now get money and buy their basic needs, and others who are widows can now educate their children. Many of the fishing sites on the Lake Victoria have grown up over the last 30 years in the wake of a boom in Nile perch fisheries, which reached a peak in 1990s, attracting many young people to the lake shores in search for cash income from fish or fish trading and associate activities. As the boom continues, many young people are still coming to the fish landing site on the lake shore and on the islands of Lake Victoria. All the landing sites are ethnically mixed as people come from all over Uganda and some from the neighboring countries in the hope of making a living and often an independent life away from the family ties. Benson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV.
That was Benson Mumbere there, and looking at all that activity that was ongoing around GGABA landing site. We have seen a lot of, fishing activity, but also the fridges that are bound to preserve the fish. Not very well. I mean, their level of functionality are less because it is associated with a lot of reasons. To me, the power electricians around landing sites at some point are a bit reluctant. I mean, this is a shore close to the water, so anything could happen. When it rains, I happened to speak to someone from Port Bell, Luzira Port Bell. People close to the water bodies or water sites, they happen to lose electricity, most probably at least in a day. Amasanyas gavavako. So many times, actually. To me, I think it's whenever they see wind or any rainy sign that it's going to be raining, power just, goes off to protect maybe any any occasions that would occur to disrupt the activity, because it's a near water body, and water with electricity. But back to the story, what are we learning here, Paul?
Well, it takes us to how government is helping out these people. Well, there's always been this issue of making sure that government implements the move to fight against fishing of what we could say premature fish, in most cases to protect the lake as well as the creatures that live in the lake besides the fish and all that. But when you look at GGABA landing site, as according to details coming in, it's one of the safest and cleanest around Kampala. That is why most people choose to go to GGABA to get themselves affordable fish in there. But when you look at the claims that are coming out, that the issue of preserving the fish is very important, because fish has quite a huge market, not only in Kampala, but across the country. And in most cases, you'll find out that there are fish exports. There is fish that actually has to be exported to a number of countries, and it will take time to reach there. So the preservation is very key if at all we want to have quality exports. We've been looking at how best we can export goods that are standard of high international standards, then how do we preserve such perishables like the fish?
And also historically, the distribution of fresh fish in Uganda has mostly been restricted to the fridge zone around the principal lakes. The principal lakes, for example, Lake Victoria, Choga, and Albert, the principal lakes. But relatively high ambit of temperatures and transport constraints also affect, you know, the fridge preservation, because when you look at the major urban centers like Kampala, Entebbe, Masaka, and other areas like where you come from, Sonko, you have also seen, you know, road transport links are very suitable for some perishables. But how about water transport? If we're here, we're speaking about fish. That means
sometimes
we have
even
to
the quality of the boats is shocking in most cases. So you could say that if the government is moving for saying that there is a better way for the fishing to go on, they also have to look at some of those key issues like the boats that are being used, the type of nets, because now government looks greatly at the nets that are being used to actually during the fishing activities. Government also looks at the quality of the fish or the type of fish that is being fished out. So at the end of the day, we also have to look at this, because even the fridges that are being used are either outdated or most of them are not as effective as a new fridge would be.
Yeah, sometimes they say, why should I, you know, buy a new fridge just to put in fish? At some point it goes back to really how the activity we want as an entrepreneur or as a businessman. How do I roll out that activity for better use? I mean, we have seen second-hand fridges on the market. I don't know where you pass, but you could find them on the road. Someone would be easier interested in that more than just going to buy, you know, a very new fridge, because they despise the kind of the activity at some point really and say, I buy a new fridge, brand new, for just putting fish. From what I mean, let me take up for a second hand, but not knowing at some point you will just use it for a month, it's going to have a breakdown. And you will have issues of complaining about fridges, about electricity shorts. Maybe that's why some people have got electricity problems. At some point, the devices could affect how power is being transmitted. Yes,
simple terms.
Then never take in luxury, because there is a lot of luxury and laxations around how the code of conduct around landing sites, leaving on how we can actually focus more on small things that actually yield a lot of value. For example, the fishing fridges that they are claiming about. There are so many ways on how to preserve fish for better. For example, there is salting, there is smoking. I mean, why are you going to go into a fridge that has got to cost you another transmission, another cost of paying power for? Because you've got to pay what you use.
Well, sometimes I think, or I believe why most of them look for fridges, because when you look at smoked fish, there's also there is a market you target that wants fresh fish.
So it goes to identifying markets?
Identifying markets. There is also an available market for smoked fish or deep fried
salted
fish,
frying fish.
Yes, deep fried fish and all that. But I think the deep fried fish is always available at all costs. Now the fresh fish comes at a time when you would see there is market either in Kenya or there is market in Gulu, Arua. So different hotels want fresh fish from, let's say we want this fish from GGABA landing site. We believe it is more fresh because they know it is being refrigerated. And once you have such market, you're supposed to provide accordingly. And once that is there, you're supposed to make sure that you refrigerate your fish and make sure it remains fresh as possible.
Okay.
And so that you don't limit your marketplace, or you don't limit the people who are willing to actually buy from you.
Okay,
so,
like you're mentioning about market. To me, it's again a policy of government it's okay. Recently, that is earlier this month, coming out to put again guidelines and regulations on how people have to go to register what they fish, register their landing or fishing shores, register really what you are into.
The permits.
So that the permits to get licenses. But again, as government, what have we done to make sure we improve our markets? Because if we are to beat a higher target and tackle most of the targets around fishing areas, we also have to inject sensitization of the public, of the fishermen on the new techniques that are there for fishing, that will again produce greater yields. Not just, you know, going onto the podium and saying, okay, we don't want this, stop fishing, stop overfishing, you're poisoning fish, stop throwing rubbish in the water bodies. I mean, what is really being done to help these people at the ground or on ground? You know what, Sonko, you're fishing. When you're doing this, do not do this at this point. There should be lessons that are introduced at the shores around the country to make sure if we're going to tap into, for example, you said there is a market for smoked fish, there is a market for fresh fish, there is a market for fried and whatever fish or salted fish. But how are we going to differentiate between the two and at least have a controlled circumference around tapping into different markets? It still needs government hand to the people who are actually doing the work on the water bodies. Visit them. Let them also explore their challenges. But if the government is always going to come and say, hey, can you stop transporting fuel via the you know, because there is a lot of fuel being transported on the water body. You have been on an island before. There is a lot of budomola. I've seen even jerry cans floating on Lake Victoria.
No, sometimes those ones are used for fishing to get these nets.
Jerry cans. I've seen jerry cans floating on water.
Yeah, those are either they just tie on the jerry cans in most cases. Some of these fishermen, some of the fishermen tie their nets on these jerry cans and under the water. So then this helps them in marking. So when you mark, then you know that my net starts from there and it ends at the other point.
In the middle of the water body. I'm speaking about a lake, Joram.
Yes.
You're telling me someone dives, ties it where?
No, it is tied on the top of the fishing net. So then remember, you don't easily see the net if at all you're sailing on water. You'll only have to see it if at all you go underwater. So some of these jerry cans are used for that.
Are you speaking that there is a boat there? Because in my perception, there is no boat at all. I'm in a boat cruising, and then at a distance, I see just a hanging jerry cans.
Most of these jerry cans, now, in most cases, it's more of a catchment area. If you're looking at the people who are doing the transportation of the boats that do the transportation of people, we'll tell you why we do not, the reason as why they don't even pass closer to that. It is said that most of these nets are very powerful, that they can easily pull down this this boat. So that is why they put these markings. So they use these jerry cans for marking to help someone operating a boat to tell that, hey, if you pass there, it is a no-go zone.
Oh, Sonko, you were Mubalia all along. You've been to the waters. Which landing site have you been to? I mean, where you have learned all this.
I've been to GGABA, the GGABA landing site. I've also been to Kassim, and not settling, just being around there. I've gone through those places. I've eaten around the same place.
That's why you learned all these tricks.
No, most getting to know of that, it is when I was using one of the local boats. So because you have to be curious, you're asking why are they jerry cans, why are there bottles? Others actually put some bottles, plastics. And then the gentleman who was operating the boat actually gave me that as an answer. And he actually told me it is not even advisable for someone to get closer there by putting hands in the water. Because the other strings are very, because he says the other strings are very hard and sharp. Because they tend to also, if a net can actually capture a fish that has more kilograms than a human being, then that means it's not difficult to capture you a single
It
human
should
being.
be a
So
shark
yes.
and a nail patch, whatever it is, really. But on conclusion here, what I urge, I earlier said government at least to intervene on the locals and try to come out with what really binds them, because we have high end and also the low end. If we don't know what's really ongoing around the grounds, we're likely to misfire at some point when we are giving regulations and guidelines. So for me, the sense of reservations and preserving fish around the sites, different sites from where you're actually getting fish or fishing from, shouldn't be always tied onto fridges. Can you try to observe any other preservation methods? Because there could not be even competition in salting or frying, but all of you target fridges, you end up having a very competitive competition. Go for something else.
True. And but sometimes people are very defiant. If he
what?
knows that there is money there, even if he has failed to get it, he will still stay, thinking that
That there is money in the fridge. We do take a break. SMB returns after the break.